What were some of the foundational decisions and things that you put in place as you've scaled that have helped you reach some of those high heights?
Yeah, I think it all stems back to our use of data. We don't make any decisions unless data tells us to make those decisions. We launch all different types of creative and different angles and messaging, and we follow the routes that take us to the highest ROAS. We've hired media buyers that have enormously high data literacy and data integrity.
So were there any specific channels where you were just navigating through and you were just, okay, this is way more challenging than the first channel we launched or the last channel we launched?
I think there's multiple offline channels that people are trying to use IP-based attribution to measure. Streaming TV, podcasts if you're using a Pixel, or even out of home is trying it, direct mail is trying to use IPs. Every time we've done that, it's just the data is so murky because you're double counting.
The challenge is always measurement. A lot of people flock straight to digital first because measurement feels more direct. How do you look at measurement?
For us, the gold standard is geo holdout incrementality tests. Obviously, you can't with every channel. And so if you can't with every channel, then you have to use what is the next best method. And typically the next best method for us is 3 or 4 methods and triangulating between them. So we use a media mix model.
Hi, and welcome to Growth Talks, where we dive deep into the world of growth and marketing with industry leaders. I'm Krystina Rubino, General Manager of the Offline Practice here at Right Side Up. Today, I'm nerding out on offline marketing with Ty Connor, the Senior Director of Growth Marketing offline at Rocket Money. Ty played a pivotal role in the company's $1.3 billion exit to Rocket Companies, the team's rebrand from Truebill to Rocket Money, and their ascent to number 1 in the App Store for the finance category, number 4 overall, actually, surpassing juggernauts like TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Before delving into the marketing world, Ty's adventurous spirit led him to a career as a geologist in remote Alaska. In this episode, we're talking about all things offline marketing, including strategies to help you get started, diversification within offline media, and of course, measurement. So without further ado, we'll get into it. Ty, thank you so much for joining me for this episode.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I was just thinking, I think I'm a podcast rookie. This might be my first speaking opportunity on a podcast. So thanks for having me.
No, hey, thanks for coming. I feel like every time we talk, I learn something from you. So I'm really excited to be able to share your knowledge with anybody listening. So when we were doing research for the episode, we were going back and forth. It's always so funny to me to find out how people got into marketing and get into offline in particular. Literally, you started with rocks, literal rocks. You were a geologist. So first of all, why did you want to become a geologist? And then how did you get into marketing from being a geologist?
Yeah, I get that question a lot. Yeah, the end of high school, I knew I loved science. I also lived in a place where outdoor sports were everywhere, so I was always outside. And geology seemed the path to doing science and working outside. I didn't know anything about it, but a common theme of my life is I just jump into things and hope that I like them. And normally I'm right when I jump in. Decided to study geology in college, loved it. Went to grad school to study economic geology, studying ore deposits, which then led me to a short career working in remote Alaska, 60 miles north of the Arctic Circle. Sun wouldn't set in the summers, had lots of encounters with bears, flew around on helicopters, took the doors off helicopters and would just be hanging out. It was wild, truly wild lifestyle. But a lifestyle was tough. I met a girl in grad school, being in Alaska for 40 days straight and then only having 5 days off. Not the best way to hang out with a girl. And then, decided I wanted to be with a girl and not with my rocks. The first opportunity I could find outside of geology was at an out-of-home agency. And it was just, let's just try it. If I don't like it, I can always go back to geology. Yeah, so that's how I got into offline.
I love that you're I decided to go with the girl instead of the rocks, and then I found the thing. But it's always something really random like that, I find, into how people get into offline, because there's so many skills from other marketing disciplines and even just other disciplines that apply here. This actually answers so many questions for me about how you're so methodical when it comes to testing. I'm because homie's literally using science, actual science, not just when we're all the science of marketing, and you're well, it's a little an art and it's a little squishy in there. But
yeah, one thing I also like to say is early on in my offline career, I didn't love it. And people ask me oh, what do you do? I'm I'm kind of the middleman between billboards and brands. But I used to be this sexy geologist with a beard and bears and helicopters. And then a couple years into it, I had this idea to start a hat company. I was living in Chattanooga, Tennessee at the time. We called it Hattanooga, took the C off. And I didn't know anything about making hats or really making anything, but I just figured it out. Launched a Shopify store, figured out how to design hats, did some market research to see what my hat should look look and feel like. Did all the product marketing, all the digital marketing, had some partnerships. Eventually I got into REI and we're selling hats in REI and some other stores around town. And through that process, I realized I don't think it was necessarily the rock. I loved rocks, but I think what I loved more about geology was just the opportunity to learn every day. And when I took that approach to my job at the out-of-home agency, I was like, oh wow, there actually is a ton to learn. Like if I actually just apply myself here, I could probably be like the best in the world, because there weren't a lot of smart people like applying themselves, which was lucky for me. Sorry, out-of-home industry, but like a lot of y'all need to step up your game. Once I like started learning marketing and learning every day, like that's when I found my love for marketing.
Yeah. And it's funny because I was wondering like what translates over. And I think it's just like curiosity and passion. We've talked about this briefly before. So like full disclosure, Ty and I work together we orbit each other a little bit. Our teams do a lot of the work together, but we work with Rocket Money. But Ty is one of the only people I've ever met who can make out of home work for growth marketing against performance metrics. So when he says like step it up to the industry, there's something backing that up, but I'll tease that out and we'll get into that later. What is interesting to me about your work at Rocket Money is that you were the first offline hire at Truebill. So not Rocket Money. That's the new company that was created when Truebill sold to Rocket, but you were the first offline hire at Truebill. And now, I mean, you've scaled offline marketing exponentially since you started. You're a top 5 advertiser in podcast alone, scaled in audio. You guys do amazing work in television and out of homes. What were some of your initial strategies when you were launching different offline channels? How did you, in the moment, prioritize which channels to launch first?
Yeah, so you have to like rewind and remember we were at like 0% interest rates and everything was just grow at all costs. We were a 3 or 4 year old startup, had traction, and was just like, how do we pour more gas on the fire? So with that context in your mind, everything was about what channels are the most scalable and then also what channels could add efficiency. So like the way that we designed things was we wanted to test across as many channels as we could, but we also didn't have a ton of cash on hand, like Rocket Companies does. So we had to be like very, very strategic about when and where we tested. We always took an approach of like minimum viable test. We wanted to spend enough to where we were really just like prioritizing learnings. If it was 0% ROAS, but we were confident that it was 0% ROAS, that was a great test. And so then we ranked channels based on how much do we have to spend to get quality learnings. Channels like TV that were easier to measure versus something like out of home took precedence. One, because like TV is like more scalable than out of home. But it was also just like, easier to measure and like quicker to get learnings. So it was all just like, how do we increase like velocity of learnings? And that was like the approach we took back then. It's very different than what we do today.
Well, I mean, that's your approach evolves. And I don't want to lose one of the points you made, which was a 0% ROAS test was still a successful test, is still a successful test. And I think that marketers very often are like, well, I've talked before about the people asking you to spin results in a more positive direction. And it's no, dude, that tanked. Why is that a successful test, Ty?
Well, I think what makes it successful is the confidence that it was 0%. You come out of a test and one signal is telling you it was 0% and another signal is telling you it was 200% and you don't know what signal to lean on, then you're probably going to spend a lot more money just like figuring out which of those signals was right. And maybe it's somewhere in the middle. Maybe it's like actually one of the signals was right. Slowing down at first, design very methodical and thoughtful tests. One, it'll save you a ton of money, but two, it'll just increase your learnings and help you scale faster and help you find those pockets of efficiency faster.
Yeah. And it's finding those pockets of efficiency. It's interesting because you referenced 0% interest and we had a lot of fun for a few years there in growth marketing. But what's interesting is a lot of companies use that as a way to scale Facebook and, now Meta. A lot of marketers use that time as a reason, or I'm going to say an excuse to like not have to diversify spend, because digital channels are kind of easier to measure, even if they're imperfect, right? Like the fact that I still talk to people regularly that are less click attribution. You're like, how did you translate offline speak and kind of offline challenges and weirdness to what I have to assume, since you were the first hire there, it was a very digital leaning organization from a marketing perspective. I would imagine they had spun up several channels successfully before hiring you.
Yeah, that is correct. I was fortunate that we just had amazing people here. The founders here are brilliant. Our VP of growth at the time our founder likes to say she was the Michael Jordan and LeBron James and Steph Curry of marketing. And so I was just just fortunate to have amazing leaders here and an amazing finance team that would listen to me and hear me out when I was telling them how offline channels are measured differently, how they can impact efficiency of other channels, and how it all works together. I coined the term last click truthers. I have successfully made our team, or I don't know, we didn't get rid of last click truthers, but we have just eliminated that mindset. Best if you're an offline person dealing with last click truthers, best of luck, and do some geo level holdout tests, and then maybe they'll change their ways.
Yeah, I love a good geo level holdout test. I also love turning channels like podcast off, which people are always like, you do, but you're in an agency. I'm like, well, it's the only way that all of a sudden people are like, do you know we're still getting conversions from 2 months ago in that channel? I'm like, oh my God, no way. That's so weird. Yeah. Geo holdouts are definitely the way. Also, if you think I'm not stealing last click truthers immediately, that is one of the best things that I've ever heard.
If I have one gift to the growth marketing world, it'll be that.
If that's what you're remembered by, I think you've done some really good work there.
Yeah, I'm gonna go change my will and ask for them to say was not a last click through.
This is how people talk in real marketing. You come up with phrases to remind yourself okay, well, this is kind of what we're navigating or what we're dealing with, just to kind of humanize everything and make it a little more fun, because not everything can be as exciting as rocks. Okay. The other part of it that's interesting to me is that a lot of people know Rocket Money because you guys did a great job with the rebrand. Truebill was such an amazing name. There's a reason you were acquired, right? The name explained what it did. But I do think that you guys have done an amazing job of making Rocket Money stand for something and mean something and kind of separate out from the other financial services apps that kind of are jack of all trades-ish. I mean, the other part of it is people know Rocket Money because of how much you guys have invested in marketing. What were some of the foundational decisions and things that you've put in place as you've scaled that have helped you reach some of those high heights and still push, which is what I admire about the organization?
Yeah, I think it all stems back to our use of data. I think everyone's going to say data, data, data. But I think our team and our company actually believes in data and trusts data. And we don't make any decisions unless data tells us to make those decisions. And so what that means for Rocket Money marketing, it's we launch all different types of creative and different angles and messaging, and we follow the routes that take us to the highest ROAS. There's no one putting their thumb on the scale for one color or one brand, whatever. It's just what does the data say, and that's what we do. We also we've hired media buyers that have enormously high data literacy and data integrity, and that's I think a lot of teams are handcuffed because their media buyers don't have high data literacy, and they're typically reliant on data teams to help them analyze things, and data teams are just going to be much more academic and help you you're just going to move slower if you can't do the analysis yourself. So yeah, just having a solid data stack to start with so you can trust the data, and then knowing how to use that data was that's 90% of our success.
One of the craziest things to me in working with your team is that it's very rare when you work with an in-house team for them to both spearhead data and data literacy to an extent where it's hey, I woke up this morning and I was kind of curious. So I did this other correlation analysis and and you're just okay, I'm gonna love you so much. Coffee first, then we talk through this, and then we talk about how to apply it, because your team is relentless. And I mean that as a compliment. Game recognizes game. I know I don't stop, and they don't either. And it's just this relentless pursuit of okay, but what's the data trying to tell us? And there's not a fear of throwing out bad data. There's not a fear of kind of going in a direction that the sales aren't necessarily taking you, right? You guys use a survey first methodology for a lot of your offline channels, which again is not always the norm, but you validate it and bump it up against other approaches, which I think, again, going all the way back to curiosity and diligence, these are some of the things that can be really challenging to stay diligent about when data tells you the answers you want to hear. Sometimes it's really hard to dig past the first layer of that and get through any false positives or false negatives. And I think there are certain channels that can throw false negatives and false positives. So were there any specific channels where you were just navigating through and you were just oh, okay, this is way more challenging than the first channel we launched or the last channel we launched? What threw you a curveball? Or maybe nothing did, but
I think there's multiple offline channels that people are trying to use IP-based attribution to measure. Streaming TV, podcasts if you're using a Pixel, or even out of home is trying it, direct mail is trying to use IPs. And every time we've done that, it's just data is so murky because you're double counting we're a mobile-based app, right? So I think we have the unique not unique, but like we have a challenge, like we can't measure iOS at all. We're like very conservative with, we basically just don't send any iOS data to any partner because we don't want to be the team that gets the company kicked off the App Store. And so when you try to measure things based on IP and you don't have iOS data, there's just a lot of double counting that happens. And so IP may look like 400% ROAS, but then when you dig in and see how those users actually behave and what their digital attribution sources are, it might actually be like 0% ROAS. So that was challenging. And recently we've leaned into more of the geo level testing, and that's like really, really helping us add clarity to what the actual incremental impact of some of these channels that we maybe previously thought weren't efficient based on other attribution methods, but now geo level's like, oh, well, actually this is wildly efficient and we have been undercounting it for a while.
What, if you don't mind me asking, what channel is that?
So I was until like 2 weeks ago, I was the biggest streaming TV hater. I just like did not think it worked. Like every time I looked at the
CPMs
data,
are insane.
They're crazy.
Oh, I know.
Especially compared to like linear, or at least like what we're paying on linear CPMs.
Yeah.
If you can believe what those CPMs are. I don't believe linear impressions ever. So maybe our linear impressions are higher than reported, quote unquote. But yeah, just every way we tried to measure streaming TV through like click IP tracking, MMM, survey, like nothing ever looked efficient. And this is one of those examples where we didn't get clarity from our initial tests. And so we kept spending to just like see if any of those efficient signals were true. And yeah, the last couple of weeks we launched a geo level test, and it looks like it's one of our most efficient channels. And now I'm eating a hat.
I mean, isn't that the best though? Because team kept pushing you.
Yeah.
And that's like one of the things that I admire about leaders is when they build a strong team around them, that's like, okay, sure, but we're still going to test this and we're going to do it that way. And when you have other people around you pushing you, I like to say like strong convictions loosely held, or firm convictions loosely held, because it's just, I'm like, that's fine, just move me off of it. But it might take a small act of miracle to move me off of something, but I can be moved off of most things, I'd like to say.
Yeah, I'm the same way. And if it was up to me, yeah, we would have killed the channel a couple of years ago. And the team kept pushing and kept believing and trying new things. And now we finally cracked it.
That's amazing. It is interesting because it's one of those channels that it's going to be underreported from IP. If you do survey-based measurement, people don't know if they're watching streaming TV or linear TV, or we're all just watching. I saw a really funny TikTok earlier that was like, I do my middle-sized screen for work, and then I treat myself with my small screen. And then at night I use the big screen. And it's like, it's so stupid. First of all, is that not like the summary of American life? But it's true. I don't know if we're watching something and my husband puts it on before me, big screen time. I don't stop to even think about what platform I'm using or like how I'm being targeted until the marketing ads start hitting. And then I'm like, oh, okay, this is OTT. But it's the channel that like, it is easy to get it's easy to get a false positive. It's very easy to get a false negative. But the other channel, and then we'll get into, we have a little game that we play with everybody who joins our show. So we'll do that in a minute, but it'll be fun. I promise. It's fine. The one channel that I personally have not been able to consistently crack for brands who care about growth and care about measuring things and aren't just like, oh my God, look at the pretty money that's flying out the door and the billboard that we bought on the way to the CEO's house, which I have definitely done. But out of home is one of your strongest channels. And as somebody with a healthy bias against out of home for earning its place in a growth marketing mix, I'm not disputing its ability to drive brand recognition and move brand metrics. That has been proven a million times. But when it comes to actually being like, somebody saw that, engaged with that ad in some way, or at least they eyeballed it, and then something happened because of it. You guys stand apart for me in the scale and the approach. So like, how have you done it, Ty? How have you cracked out of home for growth?
It still is the hardest channel to have faith in. I think we've taken a performance mindset. And so if I ask you, is a 15-second podcast ad or a 60-second podcast ad going to perform better? Like, what would you say?
60.
Probably that same philosophy is true in out of home. I don't think a lot of people think about dwell time. Everyone puts like subways in the same bucket as billboards, and billboards in the same buckets as taxi tops. But the world of out of home is immense, right? So you have anything from billboards to taxi tops to screens inside a taxi to subway wraps to cards inside a subway. And all of those pieces of media have completely different exposure times. If you're in a subway, you're engaging with that ad for sometimes maybe even an hour versus like a billboard, you're driving by for 6 seconds if you're lucky. And so we've always prioritized high dwell time out of home. Typically like CPMs are really low, and media like subway cards are really hard to install. If it's really hard to install, that means it's really hard to take down. So we end up getting like a lots of free media on the back end, right? And so there's just like lots of different things you can do if you know how the industry actually works to just get your CPMs super, super low so that even though it's may or may not be an actual direct response channel, it will perform for you. You just have to be smart about how you do it and know people. It's a very relationship driven business. And if you know the people that know the people, then you're going to get the best deals, and that's how you're going to make it work for you. But if you're buying programmatic digital boards in Times Square, then yeah, best of luck. Like just go hand some people money and ask them to buy your product instead.
I used to the example always, because I came up in New York and I lived there, but also first 10 years of my career spent in New York. And I used to tell people, I'm like, oh, that media tactic, if you want, we could just spend money, print out some flyers, and we can walk 10 blocks that way and go to Times Square and hand them out, because you have a better chance of that working than that random ass tactic that you just pulled out of a vendor presentation that you got 6 months ago. I'd never thought of it in terms of dwell time as a correlation for actual media exposure. If you think about it, eventually when you're just sitting there stuck on a subway between two stops, you're looking around. That's so interesting. But I guess the other part of it is all media is math. It's from a CPM perspective. It's like every time some partner comes to us and is like, can we like make this work? I'm like, oh, I can make anything work at a price. Like, sure, you want to make it work? How much do you want to make it work? It's just a math equation.
That's just the tactical side. There's also the measurement pieces, still like probably the hardest channel to measure. I think there's a lot of people selling snake oil out there and like promising that they can measure out of home, and unless you're doing geo holdout tests and with a significant number of geos, not just like 4 or 5, probably like 20 plus to like actually get a solid experiment design, then yeah, I don't know if I would trust most of the solutions out there. There's some good ones, but I think they're more, some of the like out of the box home measurement solutions out there, they're good for measuring, is this out of home tactic better than this out of home tactic? It's not great for how efficient is out of home in my media mix, and should I invest more in out of home or not? That's kind of the general approach we've taken.
We're going to get into measurement. I gave it its own section because that's literally the first and last questions people always ask me when we're talking about offline is measurement driven. So we'll take a little break to be maybe a little silly. We do what we call an A/B test because marketers love an A/B test. Who doesn't love some variable testing? And I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions, and some are marketing related, some are not. And you get to just pick one. It's very scientific. You don't have to prove your work, but I might ask you to. So without further ado,
let's do it.
Direct mail, postcard, or letter?
What's the product?
No. There's no clarifying. No. This is not 20 questions, my friend. You get to just pick.
Okay, I think it depends on the product. I think a credit card's going to perform better through a letter, and I think average DTC product is going to perform better on a postcard.
Fair, but you can't caveat everyone.
Okay.
Not everyone. You get like 2 more caveats, because I know saying no more caveats is not going to work. I think I might know the answer to this one, but data-driven or intuition-based marketing?
Data-driven.
I gave you a softball. Urban or rural living?
Urban living, rural. I'm not going to waste a caveat on that. Never mind. Urban living.
Fine. Would you rather face off against a bear or a shark?
Oh, I have faced off against a bear, and it was not fun. When I say I fought bears in my geologist stories, like I'm not kidding. That was another reason I left. It was dangerous.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
That's the whole, the meme going on around would you rather be alone in the woods with a man or a bear? I'm like, no, he's tried the bear, guys. It's pretty scary.
I'm going to choose bear. I've had success. It was scary, but I had success, and I think I could do it again.
Translatable success. I like it. Okay. In marketing, automation or personalization?
Automation.
For out of home, high traffic or super targeted area?
High traffic.
Why high traffic?
Again, it depends on the brand. For us, we're a very broad audience brand. And one, I'm skeptical of data used in high targeting out of home. If you mean you're trying to target one person and you buy a billboard outside their office, then yeah, that's doable.
Sure. Which we've never done. We would never do that. And we've never done that.
There are brands that I've seen it done.
I know. Influencer or podcast host?
Podcast. Yeah. I'm too old for influencers.
I feel like that.
Yeah,
feel that
that's
way
not my
sometimes
media.
too. CAC or LTV?
LTV.
Yeah. You could always mess with the ratio, but I'd rather have strong LTV. Online shopping or in-store shopping?
Online shopping.
Breakfast or dinner?
Dinner.
Listening to music or podcasts?
Music.
Supervillain or superhero?
Superhero. We're good people out here, Krystina. I'm not, yeah.
Yeah, but supervillains have amazing costumes. What? Listen, listen, your priority is in the right, I mean, it's in a place. Like, I won't say it's the right place or the wrong place, but like your priorities are in one place, mine are in another.
You can look good and help people.
That's,
you
know what?
Either or.
That's fair enough. I always think about The Incredibles when they're like...
yeah, they have great costumes.
They do, but never capes.
Yeah.
Never capes. It's important. So elephant in the room with offline marketing is always measurement. So Ty's going to answer all of our questions about offline measurement, you guys. We're going to solve it here. And then we're both going to quit our jobs. We're just going to, that's it. This is our swan song. And that's it. Because it's obviously been totally figured out. We got into this a little bit with out of home before, and we'll get into it a lot more now because the challenge is always measurement, right? A lot of people flock straight to digital first because measurement feels more direct. How do you look at measurement? How do you look at measurement against offline marketing, period? But really, like, how do you know if some things are right or wrong? What tools do you use? Do you find useful? You can plug products or services. You don't need to. How, Ty? How?
I love to plug some products. And I have no incentive to plug products. I just the people that work on these products and want them to do well. Yeah, I think for us, the gold standard is geo holdout incrementality tests. Obviously, like you can only do that for channels where you can turn geos on and off. And when you can do that without altering your strategy, your costs and CPMs dramatically. So linear TV, the way we buy it is nationally in the remnant. And if we were to go do geo testing, it would just totally change the strategy and CPMs. And the results wouldn't actually be applicable. Influencers, national media, like you can't do geo testing there. But if you're creative, there's ways to do it with podcasts. Again, it's not representative of podcasts, but it's representative of at least like some podcast media. Yeah, so that's, if we can get to that, that's what we try to do. Obviously, like you can't with every channel. And so if you can't with every channel, then you have to use like, what is the next best method? And typically the next best method for us is 3 or 4 methods and triangulating between them. Yeah. So we use a media mix model. We use Recast. Huge fans of them because we can come to them with ideas on like, hey, should we split this channel into 2 and like see if it increases the model accuracy, or do we need to consolidate these channels? What happens if we do this, whatever? And they're just, all they do is media mix modeling. They're not distracted by trying to build other solutions, and I think there's a lot of value to that. And they've been awesome partners.
Yeah, +1 to that.
But media mix models also aren't perfect. We just ran an incrementality test on one channel and it was wildly different than what the media mix model said. So I think being able to pin your media mix models to your incrementality tests will help it get better over time. We use survey for a lot of channels, and we try to use multiple survey questions whenever we can. So we don't look at all of TV in a bucket. We have people, if they select TV, then they are asked what streaming network, or if it was cable TV. For podcasts, we're using like which podcast hosts did you hear from, and triangulating our survey data with URL, or I'm not going to call it last click data because you're not really clicking URL, but yeah, triangulating survey data with URL data. Yeah, I think when every channel is going to have 3 or 4 different signals, and there's different tools and partners you can use to measure them. And so we look for every one of those and try to just see what signals get us to like what we think is the truth and closest to the truth as possible.
Yeah. And it's especially important for national channels. Like to your point, you can do some geo holdout in podcast, but it's not going to be indicative of every single approach that you'd take in buying. That's where MMM comes in. That's where survey-based comes in. It's like a triangulation. If you would only listen to the results of like the geo holdout, or if you'd only listen to the results of the survey and the shows and the ways that people are exposed that popped in the survey, we'd be having a very different discussion about like scale and size of the program. So I think the triangulation is what's so important. Somebody on an earlier episode of Growth Talk, somebody said it's all wrong. It's just a question of how wrong and what the most right is.
I like that. We'd steal that.
Isn't that good? I immediately stole it as well. It's actually got like Growth Talks is really just a way for me to listen to like how people smarter than me talk about things and just steal them mercilessly, which I'm totally shameless about. A lot of the tactics that we've talked about for measurement are actually very privacy resilient. And I think we've gotten a taste of that. Just Rocket Money being an app, you guys had a taste of that pretty early on because, as I remind people, iOS is not going to get any better when it comes to sharing information and data with people who are trying to use that information to make their marketing more effective. So how do you think offline marketing and the channels that we use will be impacted by things like third-party cookie deprecation, Google's privacy sandbox? I mean, it keeps getting moved out. We just recorded another show and I found out privacy sandbox won't even be a thing until next year. So I'm like, okay, everybody gets a reprieve on it, but our world is about to be impacted by this.
So the question is, what happens to offline? How do we measure?
What happens to offline channels, offline measurement? Are we going to see more uptake? Are we going to see people?
I think offline channels will continue to grow. So something I saw like right after iOS 14.5 was released was like every brand thought offline channels would be their saviors. And a lot of brands launched out of home and crossed their fingers and thought it would save them, but they didn't launch it in a way that they could measure it effectively. And some of them are like still trying to make it work, and maybe they just hope it works and they don't actually care about measuring it. And others were like, we don't know if it worked or not, but it was kind of a headache to do and we don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
So I think those pops, the like, what was that, 2021 iOS 14.5 pops are gone. But I think over time, I think marketers are going to get smarter. And I think there's a company called House that is like making geo holdout testing easy. We used to do this years ago, but it would take a month to get the test designed with our data team. And then we'd have to go implement it. And then it would take another month to analyze it. And House is making it so we can build our tests in 5 minutes and then run the tests and get results in like 2 weeks. And I think as more marketers get exposed to those types of tools, they're going to get smarter about how they design experiments, and they're going to design experiments in offline channels, and they're going to start understanding how efficient and incremental these channels can be. But it's just going to take time for people to learn how to actually measure these things and then go scale them. But it's going to happen.
Yeah. And it's also, these channels are good at different things. People are like digital versus offline, because I've got a deep experience in both, but it's not a versus is what I often respond. Like, it's not like one is inherently better than the other. One is more demand capturing, one is more demand generating, one is somewhat easier to measure, and one is more challenging to measure. But once you get to a measurement methodology, it's stable. So I won't give you versus, but how do you think about the synergies? I hate that word. And the balance between offline and digital?
I think it's all just about who is your audience and where are they? Because a channel like Facebook can both create demand and harness that demand. But like, so can TV. If you have an audience that's watching TV, and there's ways to measure it and actually see people converting immediately after. I think generally what I would say is most marketing advice is like too broad, and people need to really just like look at what their brand is and how people interact and consume the media that makes sense for their brands to be a part of. And then once you understand who your audience is and like where they spend their time, then that's how you go design a media strategy to grow your brand. So yeah, it's not a versus offline is only brand whatever and digital is only demand capturing. I've seen brands have success with reach campaigns on Meta. I think 3 years ago people would laugh at that, but Meta can be like, it's the biggest ad platform in the world. It has the most people on it. Of course, it can create reach and create demand, but so can TV. And it just depends on who your audience is, because your audience might not be on TV. Your audience is probably on Meta. But yeah, you just got to ignore the broad advice and just use your brain and you'll be a good marketer.
I think that's probably the best marketing advice that you could give. Actually, I know that was not your intent when you started, but I think that's exactly.
I really was just finding a way to not answer the question.
Well, I wasn't gonna. You still have your mulligans from before, so we can say that. No, I'm kidding. Again, it goes back to like curiosity, intentionality. Those are the intangibles of it.
Like, I think most marketers have a certain toolbox and they just go to their toolbox and they try to use that same toolbox on whatever problem they're currently trying to solve. But really what they should do is think of themselves in Home Depot and go find the tool that they need to solve whatever problem they have. Plug to Home Depot.
Home Depot is one of the products and services that we recommend here in Growth Talks. I'll take Home Depot sponsorship. That's fine. One thing I truly admire about the team that you've built is, people like Trent Polly and Braden Tokiyama and the others on your team are just these tremendous humans, but also like these great marketers. And it's like, what do you, when you're interviewing, when you're looking to build a great team, which you have, what are some of the things that you look for in terms of marketers to add to the mix? What are they adding? What are you looking for?
Well, that's a good question. The first thing we look for is just like, are they a kind and nice person? We have a very strict no assholes policy here.
Support that so fully. Yeah. No brilliant jerks, no jerks.
Yeah, except for Trent. We missed them.
I mean, he's fine. It's okay. If we didn't give him crap, Amy would be really mad at us. So we'll make sure that gets in.
I think I like to look for some of the things I see in myself. I never taken a marketing class and had to learn marketing all on my own, basically. I had great mentors along the way, don't get me wrong, but I think like, not having that school-based knowledge, I've always just been wondering where are my blind spots, what am I missing? And I've just always like, strived to learn more and just had high curiosity. So we look for people that are highly curious. We also look for people that have very high data literacy. We tease that out through like a homework assignment we give to people. And then we also, this is the hardest one to tease out, but if we can find people that are like super competitive, I've found that to be essential, like not essential, but like our best people are like super, super competitive. I can teach anyone to get 50% discount on an out-of-home campaign, but like to get an 80 or like 90% discount, you just have to have that lead factor. Or like trying to figure out which people want it more is really tough, but if you can tease that out and like find the people that are competitive and want it more than the other people, then they're going to go the extra mile to like make sure performance crushes.
I love that. And it's all of it together, right? We usually end with a question that I think there's a lot of people in the marketing community that think about like growth hacks and what's the way to hack your way to a blah, 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 or what's the one growth hack that you would share with a friend. My question for you is, what is your growth non-hack?
Like something you can't, like something, what was this, like it's not easy, you just got to do it.
The example I always give to people is when people are like, oh, I hacked my way to $1 million in sales on Meta and blah, blah. No, you didn't. It was 2014. Buddy, you were in the right place at the right time.
You want me to debunk hacks? Is that?
Sure. Or maybe you're, no, I actually have a legitimate hack and you're not doing this right. Oh, I mean, if you have an actual growth hack, I would love to hear it.
I think just sign up for House. That's the growth hack. Do geo holdout testing. That's the growth hack.
Is it House spelled like house?
It's HAUS.io.
HAUS.
Yeah.
.io.
Yeah, big fans. They're great people over there too. All right, so I think a lot of brands will max out a channel, then they start launching new creative, they try new strategies, whatever, and they can't unlock the next tier of spend. And typically what they'll do is they'll go find another channel to launch, and that's how they're adding incremental spend. But I think more brands should spend more time improving and testing on their core than they should exploring new channels. Because I think there's, at least in our experience, there's always been more scale and efficiency to find on our core channels, and 9 times out of 10 we should have just spent more time and more brain power figuring out how to unlock core channels rather than testing like fucking fortune cookies or something.
Is your growth hack fortune cookies?
No, growth hack is don't fall for the fortune cookie trick and just go figure out how to unlock more scale on your core channels.
Yeah, that's because also like you haven't hit diminishing returns on TV. I don't think it actually has happened yet, unless there's a couple of pharmaceutical companies that I can think of, but there is so much scale in some of these channels.
If you have a good MMM vendor, they're going to help you understand how saturated your channels are. So if you really feel like you're saturated and you haven't looked at that, go look at that first. If your MMM says you're saturated, then yeah, sure, go launch a new channel. But you can also find ways to like ride the culture wave. Find ways to make moments out of holidays that you like haven't made a moment out of. There's so many ways that like you can scale moments. I don't think enough brands are like thinking that way. They're just thinking evergreen, evergreen, evergreen. We launched 100 creatives last month and nothing gave us extra scale. So let's go launch a new channel. And then that's how you blow 100K on fortune cookies.
Don't blow 100K on fortune cookies. If you take away one thing, there's like probably some fortune cookie advertising company that's going to reach out to me and be like, how dare you? Yeah, I'm bringing it all the way back. It's all about that discipline, curiosity, but I think turning it inwards to stuff we're already doing, even because I don't know about you, but the stuff that I was doing even 6 months ago, 12 months ago, and some of the channels that I focus on, they don't work the same way. These channels are still evolving. They're living, breathing things. And it's, creating moments. I love that. Well, Ty, thank you so much for all the time. That I always feel like I learned something, but thank you for a fun conversation and a great time. And yeah, it's been a pleasure having you.
Yeah. Thanks for the invite, Krystina.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Growth Talks. We hope you found our discussion insightful and fun. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more valuable content. And if you're excited and ready to start up-leveling your growth strategies and execution, Right Side Up has you covered. Right Side Up is a leading growth marketing agency that has partnered with over 1,000 companies of all stages and sizes to help them meet and exceed their growth goals. With expertise across all growth marketing functions, we can help you evaluate product market fit, develop customer acquisition strategies, navigate executional challenges and staffing gaps, and make pivotal decisions with confidence. And whether you need one individual or a custom-built, full-service team, we'll find you the right A+ talent. Visit us at rightsideup.com to see how we can help you and your company grow.